Okay, now today we're going to be starting to learn about DNA and genetics, which is going to lead into our final rubric of the quarter, which is our genetic monster rubric. So make sure that you're taking notes because there is a lot of vocabulary in this section of notes, and feel free to pause the video as you need to so that you can make sure you take your notes and then go to Edmodo for the Edmodo quiz. So today we're going to be learning about DNA and genetics. So the first thing that we're going to do is give you some definitions. Genetics is the scientific study of heredity. And heredity is the passing of physical or mental characteristics or traits from parents to children. Or you might hear the word offspring. So anytime you hear somebody say, you look like your mom or your dad, or talking about, well, they have blue eyes just like their grandmother did, or anything like that, is people are talking about heredity. And so the way that heredity happens, the way that the traits are passed from parent to child, is through DNA. And DNA is the genetic material, or you can think of them as instructions, that carries the information about an organism, and it's passed from parent to offspring. And this shape right here is the shape of DNA. It's called a double helix, and that contains the information that translates into your characteristics, your eye color, your height, your weight, whether you're left-handed or right-handed, whether you have curly hair or straight hair, freckles, no freckles. All of that is from your DNA. So where is the DNA located? It's in the nucleus of cells. So remember, we talked about that nucleus being the control center of the cell. Inside that cell is all of your DNA. And so here, if we're looking at the nucleus, these are your chromosomes. Chromosomes are made up of really tightly wound strands of DNA, and here is a gene. So a certain section that has to do with a certain characteristic or trait is called a gene. So here's some more ways to visualize DNA. So you can see it here in the chromosome, inside the nucleus, inside the cell, right? And you can see it's all tightly, really tightly curled up like a cord. If your house has I don't know if you happen to have a corded phone in your house, it's that spiral, twisty shape. And if you were to pull it, it would stretch. And you could see a certain section would be a gene for a certain trait. And here's another visualization. So chromosomes. They are tightly wrapped DNA ready for reproduction. That's the definition of a chromosome. And humans have 46 chromosomes in pairs. So there are 23 pairs in a human. So what you need to know is that quantity is not linked to intelligence. So let's talk about the crayfish species. How many chromosomes do you think might be in a crayfish? That'd be something for you to look up. So when you're looking at here are the chromosome pairs in a person, when you get to that 23rd pair, you can have either an X and a Y. So you can have either two X's, which makes you a female, or an X and a Y, which makes you a male. So that Y chromosome is what makes a person a male. So depending on what chromosome the male donates, because every male has an X and a Y, and every female has two X's. So a female, the mother, can only give an X chromosome. So it's actually the father that determines the gender of the baby. Because if they give a Y chromosome, the baby is a boy. If they give an X chromosome, the baby is a girl. So let's talk about what is a gene. So we've looked at organisms, and inside organisms there are cells, inside cells there are chromosomes, inside chromosomes there are genes. So that's like that magnifying activity that we did when we looked at the smaller and smaller things. A gene, it's a small part of of an organism's DNA that has the instructions for a specific trait. So if we were looking at this might be this section of DNA right here. That might be the gene for eye color. So genes provide the instructions to allow you to exist and function. So there are approximately 20,000 to 30,000 genes for each person. So that is a lot of genes in one person. So where did your DNA come from? That is the million-dollar question. It came from sexual reproduction. So the sperm contains the male chromosomes. The egg contains the female chromosomes. They combine, and that's what creates a person. So sexual reproduction, the definition, is the creation of a new organism by combining the genetic material from male and female cells. So if we look at this map right here, so we have a full chromosome, this is the mother, and a full chromosome for the father. Now, an egg and a sperm are very different, they're very special cells. They're the only cell that only contains half of a person's DNA. So every other cell in your body has a chromosome that looks like this. They have 100% of the person's DNA. Egg and sperm cells, right, look like this. So each egg only has 50% DNA. Each sperm cell only has 50% DNA. So the egg passes on or contributes 23 chromosomes. So 23 halves of chromosomes. The sperm cell also has 23 chromosomes. They combine, right? So you think of those 23 pairs. The egg has 23. The sperm has 23 halves of the pairs. They combine to make 46 full chromosomes in 23 pairs. Okay? So this is giving you half. This is giving you half. They combine to create the baby. So again, is it a boy or a girl? You're looking again at that 23rd chromosome. There are 2 X chromosomes, so the mom contributes an X chromosome, the dad contributes an X chromosome. You end up with a female baby. The mom contributes the X, dad contributes a Y, you end up with a boy. So again, the female she has 2 X chromosomes, so she's always going to donate an X chromosome. The male, the dad, has an X and a Y chromosome, so they can donate either an X or a Y. And that determines the sex of the baby. So if we're looking here, here's mom's chromosome, here's dad's chromosome. So it's a pair. So those two join together. So what is gene mapping? You might have heard this on the news or read an article about it. Gene mapping is the process of determining where genes are located on individual chromosomes. So an example would be maybe down here is the gene for hair color. So there's the mom's gene for hair color, dad's gene for hair color. This is just an example. Understand that gene location is a lot more complex than this. But this is what they're doing. You might have heard of it as mapping the human genome. And this is what they do. They can do this and look for, a lot of times for diseases, different things like that. to figure out where genes are located in the body, what genes people have, and they can use that in some cases. They're trying to use that to target treatments for people for certain things to make them more specific to the person and figure out better treatment options. So if there's more than one gene, so there is more than one gene per trait, so who wins? So that gets into a whole next lesson that we're going to be learning about. And so some things are dominant and some things are recessive. So a dominant trait is always going to show up over a recessive trait when both genes are present. So if the dad has brown eyes and the mom has blue eyes, and he passes on a brown eye gene and the mom passes on a blue eye gene, the brown eye gene is going to be what's shown because brown eyes is dominant over blue eyes. And we're going to get into more detail about that in our next set of notes. So go ahead to Edmodo and make sure you do the quiz and bring in your notes to class.